Hello and welcome back to Splunk TV and the Day 2 conf21 recap. My name is Josh Atwell. I've been your host through a variety of content throughout the last couple of days, and we are here now to recap the end of today, and we'll probably talk about a few things that have happened throughout the entire conference. I'm having to take deep breaths. Way too much excitement with the end of comp, particularly excited about Mark Hamill. But let's get into that with our guests. I have two very special guests with us today, and we'll bring them on. Our first guest is Dr. Kelly Ann Fitzpatrick. She's a senior industry analyst with RedMonk. And we have David Spritz. He's a director of services for Aplura. So, all right, let's welcome our guests. Hello, Kelly Ann, and hello, David. How are you all?
Doing well, thanks. How you doing, man?
We're right at the end of comp, so that's exhausting but exciting. Kelly?
About the same, like especially after Mark Hamill, and then I was listening to music for a bit after that, so I had to make
That
myself
yeah.
stop dancing for this.
Yeah, I had a wager with my wife and our production lead, Luca, about whether or not the events team, who did such an amazing job with Conf 2021 or Conf 21, right? Such an amazing job. I was just imagining them sitting in the events war room, like jamming out. And so I'm waiting to find out if I'm going to win or lose that wager. I hear they're like really wore out, but they're stoked to be at the end. So very, very exciting. Now, I am really excited to have you both here. What we're going to do is we're going to talk for the next about 30 minutes or so. Maybe we'll get excited. Maybe we'll go longer. I don't know. We don't have advertisers here forcing us to make too many breaks. So, but what I wanted to do is I want to talk with each of you and get a sense for some of the like main things that you were really excited about from this week at Conf. And let's see. Oh man, I don't even know where to start. So Kellyanne, let's start with you. There was a lot that was discussed this week, and Splunk being targeting for IT operations, observability, and security, the platform stuff, the customer story. There's so much that went on. What was like the big thing for you? The thing that really stood out?
So I was coming in expecting to be like observability because I'm a little slightly biased, and that's one of the trends that I follow as an industry analyst. But what definitely emerged for me, especially at the end of day one, was like this larger theme of like people. Like day one of .conf was like people, 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 and from everything from the beginning of the keynote where it was about introducing some new people at Splunk, right? So you have the introduction of my cat is introducing herself as well, but Sean Bice and then Teresa Carlson kind of being introduced as like new members of the Splunk team to the kind of theme of how do you get data into the hands of more people. So it's not just about having more data and knowing what to do with it, but how do you make it so that more people can get something out of it, to the kind of partner and customer centric talks that I managed to kind of drop in on a bit of those as well. And then for me, yesterday wrapped with Brandon Stanton from Humans of New York. And I mean, talk about having like a people centric way to close your first day of .conf. So for me, that was like the theme that definitely emerged, that I was very, very surprised to have that emerged in that way, but pleasantly surprised.
Right. I really like what you were getting at with the people focus because David in particular, right? When we're looking at this, it's a lot about people. So when we think about Splunk and getting in the hands of people, David, tell me a little bit like from Splunk Trust, like that's a big focus for all of you about getting Splunk in the hands of people, empowering them to do really incredible things. So what about that really resonates with you?
I mean, from a community standpoint, one of the things that we love about Conf is that it always gets more people involved. So there are the people who may be tangentially working on Splunk, and then they see Conf and they see the excitement around these different products, around the ways that you can work with these products to make your job easier. And people get excited, and they should, because it's exciting stuff. Uh, for me personally, my background is in security, so seeing the different things in the security portfolio and different acquisitions, and how they're getting integrated into kind of more cohesive view. The stuff around Surge is pretty exciting for me as well, from as a practitioner. So, community wise, though, it's always a ton of fun. Get to hang out with other Splunk Trust folks, even if it is virtually this year, as well as learn about a whole bunch of new people that are in the community.
Now, when you talked about search in the recap yesterday, one of the things that we really talked about was the diversity of where organizations have their applications and their data, and that security footprint that's now being managed. So with federated search, I think that's what you were alluding to. That was super impactful, right? Being able to search across from multiple locations from into a central location. Is that what you were
Oh, I was
highlighting
talking
there?
about Surge.
Oh, Surge. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So, okay, Surge is cool also. So David, why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about what Surge is?
So Surge is, from my understanding, kind of more formalized version of the security research and analytics team at Splunk.
Hmm.
Kovar and company have done some really great work in that area. If you've ever participated in bots, you are directly benefiting from their work. And I think the Surge aspect will give kind of a broader reach for that group, so that they can help more people, and more people can become successful from a security standpoint with Splunk.
Yeah, and part of the conversation we've had previously around Surge was around the fact that now we have some of the best cybersecurity experts at Splunk working collaboratively to address like real-time cyber attacks that are impacting our customers, and then using our domain expertise, right, to provide guidance to our customers so they're not left figuring that out on their own, which you know every environment is very different. There's a lot of things that are different, and then you run into things like SolarWinds where it's pretty prescriptive. Kellyanne, from the industry standpoint, how impactful do you think it is for customers when their vendors are able to kind of provide that guidance and provide that expertise to supplement what they're able to do themselves?
I mean, I don't know how people do anything without guidance from their vendors, because your typical, especially in the software industry, so many pieces go into making software, and it's so many other pieces of software that usually kind of go into that. So especially around areas like security, where security has become such an important thing to people, simply because it's something you see in the news all the time. It's something that is, when it goes wrong, when it fails, it's usually very bad, right?
Right.
And at the same time, especially in the software industry, so many developers, especially, like, are not security experts. And the more vendors can give guidance on anything from security to how things kind of integrate with each other, but especially security, the better.
Now, are you seeing, from the industry perspective, are you seeing more and more companies um, really maturing in how they get security integrated into more components of their business, like development? I'm trying to be hesitant and not say DevSecOps, right? Trying not to go too deep into that rabbit hole, because I can just see by your responses, like that's easy to kind of get the conversation a little discombobulated. Although I feel like we're narrowing in a little bit on what DevSecOps means, but are you finding that more organizations are getting a better discipline around like narrowing or expanding security and more security minded people involved?
No, absolutely. And I was trying not to cringe when you said DevSecOps, because I don't. I really want to know what David thinks when he hears that term. But for me, it's something where DevSecOps, like DevOps, is in many cases it becomes like this. Here's this thing that we can just kind of sell you, like DevOps in a box, DevSecOps in a box, and that's not how DevOps works. Much less when you take DevOps and you try to like make security like a kind of feature. But it certainly has been more top of mind, and especially KubeCon was last week, and there was just a lot more talk about security than like I had seen in years past, if that makes any sense. And it's certainly something that is more top of mind, in the vendors that we talk to and in the folks who are consuming different type of products.
Yep. Well, actually, that you kind of teed that up, and I do apologize if you're hearing clicking. I am kind of looking at my notes, and I'm going to learn to use a touchpad in the future. So, David, I do want to move that over to you. So, honestly, we saw physical reaction when I said DevSecOps. None of it was like, oh, like that. But like, what is your thought process when you hear DevSecOps? Like, how do you communicate that?
So, security folk tend to be very skeptical and slightly cynical, maybe not so slightly, right?
No way.
And so right, when you walk into a shop that has been doing security for a while and you start throwing around things like DevSecOps, there's usually a good amount of groaning of like,
Right.
they're trying to sell something, right? Like, um, I think, and this has been true with every buzzword that has come along through the security community for a long period of time, right? A new thing comes up, it gets thrown out there, sales folk grab it, and we'll throw it out there.
Sure.
Sometimes the products can back it up, and sometimes they can't. I think what we're starting to see from a maturity level from Splunk and other products as well is that it's becoming a real thing. I think it's still a little more on the nebulous side, but it's becoming more, okay, so this can be an actual practice here that we can look
Right.
at.
And now that I'm thinking about this, hearing your answer, I feel like it ties a lot to what Kellyanne was talking about at the beginning around people. Um, David, from a security expertise and the avoiding the DevSecOps washing things, what do you think is necessary or valuable to empower people with in order to make something like DevSecOps very tangible and legitimate? Because it's not going to be a product. And for the audience, I didn't know we were going to go down a DevSecOps path, but I'm excited we're talking about it because I think it is important and relevant. So what is it is necessary to empower people to make it more than just a term, but actually part of the organizational structure?
So I've been doing this for a long time. This is my, let's see, so 2011 was my first conf.
Mm-hmm.
So 11 years working with Splunk. Um, and that's mostly in the security space. In that time, I can think of maybe one or two customers that I've worked with where they can honestly look me in the face and say, yeah, we have enough security people. We're good. We don't need any more security help. It's just incredibly rare. Uh, More often, what we find is that the security teams are overburdened. They have a lot to do. There's a lot of fires to put out, right? There are a lot of things that come up during the course of a day that's we've got to look at this right now. We've got to do something about this right now. I think kind of a maturity of things like automation, so Splunk SOAR, the Splunk intelligence management, and we'll talk about names
Mhm.
later maybe.
Yeah.
Um, there's there's a real kind of feeling like, okay, we can use this to calm down a little bit, to maybe have a little less stress in our lives.
Sure.
So if that's successful, then I think that's when you start to see it get into, okay, we've done it with this one little thing. Now let's keep going and build it and iterate on it so that we have kind of a more successful practice within an organization. And that works its way into the structure of an organization.
Now, Kellyanne, we saw you kind of nodding. I think David was hitting on something. I'm guessing you're seeing very similar from your perspective as an analyst.
And it is especially the last part about having successes, right? And little like security is one of those things where I feel it can be extremely overwhelming to folks who don't already know about it. Um,
Right.
and the idea of like, okay, we suddenly have to have everything ready, like, locked down. If you're not already starting from a point of thinking about security, it can be like, extremely paralyzing. So the idea of, all right, how do you get started with it? What are those small wins? How can you introduce this to people in a way that doesn't make them kind of do, especially developers often don't want to think about security or don't know how to think about security, right? We tell them to move fast but don't break things, and adding in and don't let other people break your things as well is kind of just another layer to that. um, but at the same time, it's like it's kind of necessary now, and what we're finding is the easier, the better choices you can give, say like developers, people who are like building software, the more kind of guardrails and guidelines that you can give them, the better, because it makes it easier for them to do things in kind of secure ways, in addition to trying to make all the other parts that are around your software secure.
Right. And I, you're really setting me up for a segue to something we talked about earlier. But I did want to remind the audience that we are live. There is chat capability in most of the platforms that we have, and so if you have questions, you can post them in. I will try to get them involved. And there was a question about whether or not this session, like all the sessions on Splunk TV, if they're recorded, they absolutely are. They're all available for replay right away. Okay. Now, if you want the comp stuff, you need to hurry up and get registered before the end of the day so that you can get immediate access to that before you have to wait for a little while. But all of this stuff is going to be available right away on all of the platforms. Okay. So I guess that was my little promotional commercial there to address the question in the chat. So I do encourage questions if you have anything, and comments are always nice as well. David, you have fans, by the way. Okay.
Oh,
Now, so Kellyanne, I wanted to touch on something that you were leading into, and based on something we had chatted about previously about being able to integrate all the things, right? About how important, not just from a data perspective, but and you were highlighting this around people, like the importance of how things get integrated together.
Yeah, I would say like integration is another theme for me that kind of has emerged over the past couple of days. And even David, you were talking about like pieces of security technology that is kind of being integrated into like Splunk's offering, and that's something we've also seen over the past couple of years with observability and like Splunk's kind of observability capabilities. Is Splunk has made such smart acquisitions like in that area, like different pieces like SignalFX and Omnition. And in the past, was like last year at .conf, we were talking about like rigor, and that is not an easy thing to do, to like have those pieces and then put them together into something that works together,
Mhm.
and then to take all of that and find a way to make that make sense with all the other pieces of what Splunk has to offer, or like is in business speak, we would say across the portfolio, right?
Right.
Um, which I did not learn how to speak that way until I became an analyst. When I was still doing kind of like techie things, like never use the word portfolio ever. Um, but that does speak to the idea of when you have these different pieces and they're kind of in that segmented way, how do you consolidate that? How do you bring that together? And how do you make it something that an end user can use, but then bring in different types of users who can make sense of all of this different stuff, and kind of get the most out of it. So for me, that was something that I kind of got pieces of throughout .conf this year as well, and I feel like perhaps there was some sense of that on the security side of things as well.
Yeah, and I like your reaction around portfolio. Like I get it, the business speak, that's spot on. As we started getting all these things integrated and working together, I'm like, this is really a lot more like the Avengers one, like the first Avengers, where you've got all these great individual things, and you got to get them working together, and it's not going to be seamless, it's not going to be perfect, but wow, you're going to be able to accomplish something that you couldn't do with them individually the way that you can when they work together, and they're just going to get better as they go, and they're going to get better collectively.
Mhm.
So David, following on with what Kellyanne was saying, it's like, are you seeing this interconnectivity and this need to have, not just your sim tool, but being able to have that connected or more connected with the tools that developers are using and the tools with IT operations and the business are using? How important are you seeing that as a practitioner and an end user?
Very important, uh, especially when it comes to things like cloud services, right? Every business, even businesses who for a long time were saying, "Oh, no, no, we're never going to go into cloud. That's a security." No, no, we're not doing that. It's coming. If it hasn't already hit the business, then it's coming. And the ability to have integrations to different cloud services, uh, Azure, AWS, etc. Not to mention security focused tools that are cloud based, like Tenable or CrowdStrike, those types of things. Having those integrations and the ability to not just take ingest data from them, but also to do things from the various different tools that Splunk now offers to affect change inside of them. That's a really important thing for especially smaller security teams.
Right. Okay. I won't lie. It just feels really wrong that we've talked so much business after we just got to see Mark Hamill. So we're going to take a shift in topic because I think we covered a lot of really important ground. But now, I mean, it was pretty awesome having Mark Hamill on, and so I think I want to get some thoughts from you about like what was your big moment, your highlight moment, and David, we just finished with you there. I'll let you go ahead and kick off. Like what was your favorite bit that you got from that?
Ooh. I think I really liked the story about him and his wife on honeymoon. That was my
Yeah,
favorite one, honestly. Like, I think from my point of view, it just kind of sums up the view that I kind of always had of him, from Star Wars and through, and his persona on Twitter. Very wholesome, and I don't know. It just really it got me right here.
yeah. I was thinking at that moment, and also when you were talking about him on Twitter, I would love to see him and Tony Hawk travel somewhere together. I just think that would be amazing, right? Just imagine, and for viewers who aren't familiar, Tony Hawk on Twitter and social media is hilarious because he'll tell stories about how he travels, and people are like, "Oh, Anthony Hawk, kind of like Tony Hawk." Right? He's like, "Yeah, kind of like that. I wonder what he's up to right now." Basically, this, right? Because people don't believe that he's actually that Tony Hawk. And I think that would be really great with him and Mark Hamill together. I think that dynamic would be pretty fantastic. Um, so, Kellyanne, what about yourself?
First off, I would watch that series, like that kind of buddy comedy travel series, like absolutely. Um, but for me, similarly, I had this moment where he was talking about, all right, I had to do these types of things to get the type of jobs I want. And in my mind, I'm like, oh my goodness, like Luke Skywalker had to like carve out a path for himself to get to where he wanted to be. And it was just such this very humanizing, kind of moment, because like most of us have also had to kind of be like, all right, what do I want to do? Where am I going to go? Um, and I think like within that, the moment where he talks about someone not believing that he was the voice of the Joker and having to do like the Joker voice and say like the grocery store. And I was
Yeah.
so jealous of whoever was in that grocery store.
Yeah, I mean that would have to be an absolute magical moment. I will admit, like I had not know. I mean, I knew before today, but he had been doing the Joker for a while, and then I think it was the Killing Joke or one of those that I was like, is that Mark Hamill? And I looked and it was. I'm like, oh my god, that's phenomenal! Like he's fantastic. He's done a lot of it. So
Mhm.
um, and I do think he makes a strong case for being one of the best Jokers. I mean, there's some good competition, as he fairly pointed out. Um, so given given all the different areas that which he talked about, one of the things I thought was very interesting was when he was asked whether or not he would want to remake Star Wars using modern technology. And I thought that was really interesting perspective because for viewers and for you too, if you've seen The Mandalorian, obviously they use this immersive
Mhm.
technology where the set gets digitally put in behind them. I'm like, this is absolutely incredible. I mean, what's your take on that? I'll start with David. Like, what do you think? Are we going to be talking the same way about how we manage data and the tools that we use for IT like 10, 20 years from now in the same kind of like perspective?
Maybe I so I look at the technologies that our consultants deal with on an everyday basis, and there are a lot of those that have not changed a whole lot, right? Like syslog is
Yeah.
still syslog,
Yeah. NTP still NTP.
right? It's still really important. DNS is still what causes all the problems, right? I guess
That's
unless
right.
it's BGP. Um, you know, it's. I think there will be a lot of the same problems, but there are going to be new ones going
Yeah.
forward. We're going to have a lot of different tools. We're going to have different protocols that emerge, but there's still going to be kind of some of the same old issues that have been around for as long as I've been doing security work.
Yeah, and so this since this is being recorded, I'll put this down right now. I will wager $500 that in 15 years, we will still have people having outages because of a hard drive getting full, or
Yep.
a drive getting full. Like it's still going to happen. It'll never go away. So Killian, you got really excited when I teed up that question, or at least you seemed to. So what were you really excited about there?
And I love technology itself is just like amazing, right? And I think that like for people who are not especially in the tech industry, they actually get to see the like how it what technology can do in things like film, right? So like The
Mhm.
Mandalorian, where you can create this immersive world where back when the original Star Wars trilogy was being filmed, you couldn't do that. You had to people were traveling all over the world to get the backgrounds that they wanted. Um, and in terms of what does this mean for the future, my immediate thought was like, I think we are still going to have outages because hard drives fill up. I don't think that's going away either. We might not have any many less people will have an idea of where that hard drive is because I think we're getting farther and farther away from infrastructure. Although there's always someone who's going to know where it is. Um,
Mhm.
but it's what is coming next is going to there's going to be things that we can't even imagine like at this point, like I hope in very good ways.
Yeah. I'm still imagining this world where you can have a headset and be able to like be in your data center and not actually be in your data center because it's like floating above the world because it's nice and cool up there. Just something crazy. Like it's gonna be nuts. I've been watching Foundation. I'm like, I could see that happening.
Yeah.
Specifically like the holographic grainy projection thing. I'm like, that would be amazing. Being able to go up to a server. I mean, we kind of do that with Splunk AR already, right? The capability of being able to have a visual overlay of a piece of equipment or space. So I'm with you. And I also think that we're going to continue to see this growth of visual technology where the mechanism for displaying data as an overlay of the environment, AR, right, is going to become incredibly like just ever present. Like it's just going to become so natural part of our lives at some point. And the back end data of that I think is going to be incredible.
Yeah, and in some ways we've been trained for that through media, through science fiction,
Mm-hmm.
through even older films that like imagine what it would be like to have the vision of say like a cyborg, right? So
Yeah.
we've been shown visions of what this can or might be, and the reality may be not quite like that, but we're looking for it. We're like hopefully getting ready for it.
Yeah. I feel like Star Trek really prepared us for the iPad really, really well. Although I don't think anything prepared us for the iPhone or smartphones in general. Like that has been just like a crazy transition. All right. Well, I've been ending all of these sessions, and you two have been incredibly insightful and fantastic. But I've been ending all of these sessions with let's do some forward looking. So David, we'll start with you. Let's look at everything that you learned in the last 2 days here at Conf. Um, what what are the areas where you really think you're going to be putting focus and energy and the things that you're really excited about, built off of the things that you've learned this week?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Um, where we're putting a lot of effort right now is around risk-based alerting, especially with ES. Some of the work that's been done on making that kind of a larger feature inside of enterprise security has been uh, in for a few organizations has been kind of a game changer in
Mm-hmm.
terms of being able to have a smaller team that is only having to deal with notable events that are real things. They're not kind of just haphazardly jumping from alert to alert to alert. What they're looking at are some kind of more thoughtful, curated events that have popped up that have gotten onto their radar, and now they can look into something deeper without having to worry about, well, what am I missing right now?
Yeah, no, I think that's great, and I think we all aspire for that for all of our IT and security teams. So, Kellyanne, same question over to you.
I have so many answers, but I think I'll pick. I'll try to get my top two. So, back to that idea of integration. One thing we've been talking a lot at Red Monk is what we call the developer experience gap, which is what happens when you do have to like tie all these tools together, and the kind of cognitive overload of having to figure all that out and make all of those choices. One thing I'm excited about are solutions that are trying to bring all of those things together to try to like smooth that experience and integrate it into something that's a little bit more um, kind of digestible and kind of that makes sense. So that's again something that I've seen the past 2 days at Conf, something that is going to be top of mind for me, as we kind of go forward. And the other thing that definitely struck me was, we've also been over the past year and a half thinking about how tech companies are more and more expected to be media companies. And I definitely felt that this week at Conf and I feel that right now as we are in fact
Yeah,
on Splunk TV.
yeah, no, it's funny. And we had chatted briefly on that as well.
Mhm.
I very much feel that way. Splunk TV's kind of been my baby, and getting more and more streaming. I'm not alone. A lot of great people at Splunk working on this. You saw them with the boss at the Sox and bots. Corey Minton's been super busy. Haley Ferrario on the events team has been amazing helping us get this stuff going. I'm not going to keep going because I'll miss somebody. But it's the way that people need to be engaged. And it also reminds me of something that Adrian Cockcroft said not long ago, where he had pointed out that 30 years ago, the technology that we managed in IT was only touched internally. It wasn't touched by customers. When websites became available, then customers were, for the first time, really regularly touching the technology that was being managed for a company, but it was a very limited scope. But now, so much of business critical, like interaction with customers, is done digitally. And I mean, it's a huge part of these devices that we carry with us, these massive computers. And I think that's a direct correlation to why that media element is becoming increasingly important. All right. Well, I wanted to do one last thing because it just feels like it's fun. We have on one of our programs, it's behind the shirt. We have this game called Data Domination. And in this game, I ask questions, and the guests are required to guess the answer and get as close as they can to the answer. You can be above or below. And so I've decided to pick one, and it is something that was stated in a keynote. And I don't have the exact number, but it's guesstimation basically. So you're going to guess. All right. And the question is approximately how many apps are available in Splunk base for customers to download and use?
Ooh. Are we including the SOAR apps?
I just said how many apps did they say were in the Splunk base? Because
Hmm.
I don't know the exact number. I could probably look it up, but that's cheating.
So I'm going to not cheat and look up in the notes that I have right there from everything I saw. But I'm gonna give you, I'm gonna go back to the, like, I'm a writer. I am actually an English major. I'm gonna be like a bamillion.
A
I'm gonna
bamillion.
There you
invent
go.
a number.
I mean,
A
you could
billion.
be above, you can be below. So there we go. All right, David, about
Uh,
how many?
of a billion and one.
I'm trying
I
to
would
hand you a
say,
victory, Dave.
I'm gonna say 5,000.
5,000. All right, we did have in chat 1,200 from Joseph Camp, around 30-ish from a random LinkedIn user. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be disparaging. It just says LinkedIn user. And so I can't give you any more credit than that. The answer, and we had another one jump in with 2,400 apps. And they did say it was more, just over 2,000 apps, 2,400 apps. That sounds good. So LinkedIn user, whose name I do not have, well done. You got that right. And so with that, I'll encourage everybody to go check out Splunk Base to find cool ways to extend your Splunk experience. And David, you had mentioned the SOAR apps. Just
Mm-hmm.
in like 10 seconds, what was it that you were talking about, just so the audience knows?
SOAR apps are now available on Splunkbase.
Okay. Well, that was easy. That was less than 10
Yeah,
seconds. Well done. All right.
It's very
Well, with
economical. It
that,
was like 2 seconds.
I know, like this man's very efficient. That's why you have that Splunk Trust Fez. You're on
that's
top of
right.
it. All right. Well, with that, Kellyanne, thank you very much. David, thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate you being a part of our day 2 recap here on Splunk TV.
Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you.
All right, everybody. Well, that's it. That's the end of day 2. Conf21 is actually done. It's over. There's no more conf. Uh, I don't even know what to say about that. I can't believe this is over. We really wanted to be in person, but that's okay. We still were able to deliver some incredible content. We had some amazing guests. We heard a lot of great stories. Extra special thanks to all the guests on Splunk TV this week. We're not completely done with Splunk TV this week, but I'm just really excited that we're wrapping up with Comp21. So again, special thanks to Kellyanne Fitzpatrick. Special thanks to David Spritz. We do have 2 more episodes of Data Drivers coming. We've got one here in a couple hours. Okay, that's Corey Minton and team. Then we have another one in the morning, tomorrow morning. Okay. We also have an episode of Burning Questions with Ryan Kovar. You are not going to miss this. I've worked with those folks. This is going to be hilarious. Okay. I'm betting there's going to be some serious sweating happening. Okay. Think hot ones, eat hot. I bet there's going to be something along those lines. Okay. We also have a special episode of Grey's Academy that is going to be going live tomorrow. If you haven't been checking out Grey's Academy, Gray Zuba, he's on our customer success team, does these great episodes 3 times a month on Thursdays, doing a 101, 201, 301 breakdown of Splunk and Splunk technologies. Definitely want to check those out. He's got a special episode coming tomorrow. All right. And we have one more final special episode this week of Behind the Shirt, and that's the Splunk Community Show that I co-host with Renee Woods. That's happening tomorrow. We have 2 excellent guests. This whole week has been great. Go back and check out all the replays for all the content from Splunk TV. They are available on your favorite streaming platform, whether that is YouTube, LinkedIn, or Twitch. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I forgot that one. Okay, so all of them are there. We're going to be collecting all of those. We're going to be making YouTube playlists, but they're available for you to watch right now. And if you go onto those platforms, make sure you subscribe and follow so that you get informed about all the different content that we are going to be producing for Splunk TV going on in the future beyond Conf. Okay, so thank you to the tens of thousands of viewers who have tuned in this week. It has been overwhelming. Thank you for joining us. I know we weren't the main show, but we had an incredible time this week producing content and trying to entertain and get everybody engaged. Okay. Be looking out for information for Conf22. I know we're going to be hearing more about that soon. So make sure you visit us at splunk.tv, okay, where you can get all the latest updates on what we're doing and broadcasting. Thank you so much, everyone. Be well, take care of one another. Good night.